And we're live on X, Rumble, not quite Rockfin, about to be, Facebook, and wherever else I connected to this stream. I don't even know at this point. Once we see go live, we're going to start on the first show of the new year. Also going to be doing a show at 9 p.m. with Ian, but wanted to test some of my technical things since it's been a little while since doing a show, and I'm trying out some new things. So bear with me if there's a couple of hiccups. Hopefully there will not be. Happy New Year. I hope everybody had a fantastic Christmas and a great New Year's vacation. I hope everybody had a chance to rest, have some fun, kick back, not have to worry about everything, so that you could be mentally prepared for the craziness that ensued immediately when 2025 started. It's like we got right before Christmas just a week-long nothing but Jimmy Carter news, who thankfully happened to die during the only week of the year that there's never any news. What timing, how considerate of Jimmy Carter to fill that void for us right before a tsunami of PSYOPs, PSYOP among a PSYOP inside of a PSYOP, PSYOP. Everybody's saying it everywhere because you can't even tell anymore. I'm starting to think there's so many PSYOPs inside of PSYOPs that everything is just as is. Yeah, I think he died long before his 100th birthday, Tony. But you know what he never lost despite that? Is his enthusiasm to vote for Kamala Harris, which I hear he was buried in his White Dude for Harris shirt. That's what his son said. They'll pop him back out in 4 more years. Yeah, it's the PSYOP life. Happy New Year, Forrest Mommy. All right, so this is going to be kind of a quick show here, just to make sure everything's up and working. By the way, this is the Propaganda Report. I'm Brad Binkley, for anybody who's listening who's new. And I don't want to start with those crazy stories. I'd rather start with yesterday, the certification of the presidential election. It was an anniversary yesterday, as many of you know, of January 6th, the four-year anniversary of January 6th, which always sounds weird to me because it's stupid that every year has a January 6th. It was actually the 2025th anniversary of January 6th. But because we had to fabricate this whole dramatic thing that didn't happen into some historical event, we now have to refer to January 6th as though it were September 11th. Also, 2,225 anniversaries of those. Nevertheless, you know what I mean. And unlike 4 years ago, during 2021, after the 2020 presidential election, unlike that, this time around, Congress certified the presidential election results. No drama whatsoever. Not a problem. Went right through, thus revealing to the progressive activist who had spent the past 2 years of their lives doing whatever it is they were told to do for the sake of stopping Trump and protecting democracy at all cost, that either, in the end, the only way democracy could in fact be saved was by peacefully transferring power to Hitler. Either that, or they realized that they had just spent the past 2 years being lied to and gaslit by the very organizers, media personalities, and politicians whose words for the past 24 months they have treated like gospel. One of those two things had to happen for people yesterday. One of them is let the cognitive dissonance force you to, fit what you see into the reality that you're comfortable with, or realize that you've been lied to. And people will bend over backwards to not have to feel that pain of cognitive dissonance. Like, I imagine some of these people, because they're not allowed to say anything because they can't be like people who supported Trump were 4 years ago. So many quietly watching on television. All these people who were carrying the signs and protesting and all that. I met many of them when I was pretending to be one of them. Watching to the very last minute, just hoping somebody would stop it. Somebody, stop it. Like, can you imagine being that 75-year-old widowed grandmother that I told you about that I met pretending to be a white dude for Harris, the elderly activist who gave everything she had to give these past 2 years, her golden years. She gave her time, her energy, probably the last bit of money that her husband had left her when he died. Put her body on the line as the organizers tell the activists to do. All things she did because these people, these con artists, convinced her that she had to, and that if she didn't do it, and Trump were to get elected, that when he's back in office, one of the first things he's going to do is round up old ladies like her. And that she was prepared to flee the country in order to escape this fate if Trump did so happen to win. And she really was. She was actually prepared to flee the country, this 75-year-old woman. Can you imagine that woman watching the certification yesterday? It's getting closer and closer and closer to this nightmare dystopia where she feels she is the target of Trump's wrath. That if that certification goes through, it's over for her. She's either got to get the hell out of here, or by next week, she's going to be in a cage, internment camp, ran by MAGA SS, strictly for elderly feminists. Like, this is ridiculous, but it's truly the thing that this woman fought so hard and committed herself to this activist organization who was lying to her for so long to prevent. And yet it's coming. It's about to happen. She's sitting there watching this thing going, surely somebody's going to do something. Surely. They're the ones that told me that he's going to put me in a cage and have me gang raped. Why is nobody doing anything? Just hoping. Surely they have a plan. And then it never happens. And her worst fear has come to pass. Probably terrified this woman. The shock and disbelief on her face. The fear that she felt because it was instilled upon her, inside of her, from these propagandist brainwashers who just wanted her to do what they told her to do and to give them their money. They abused this old woman. She's seeing the certification happen. And she has one of these two realizations. I might not like it, but sometimes saving democracy just means peacefully transferring power over to the man that I've been assured will put me in a cage for the rest of my life. Or I've been lied to by the people I trust most for the purpose of exploiting me because I'm a nice old lady. Which one do you think people are having the realization? Which one are they coming to? It's probably a few people realizing it's all been a big lie. Big lie. Probably most are saying, well, there's got to be a reason. It's part of the plan. Everybody trusts the plan no matter what side they're on. It's almost better that she believes they had to peacefully give it to Trump, even though it's truly her worst nightmare that she actually believes, than realizing that as an old lady, everybody she surrounded herself with for 24 months did nothing but lie, manipulate, and exploit her. People are sick. Hi, what's up, D's Laz? Forrest Mommy says these people, they are scared people would be evil in power, like she would be. Yeah, you're right. And force them to get pregnant. Yeah. I don't care. I don't care how dusty your old 75-year-old womb is. I'll get you pregnant. And I won't stop trying. I mean, this is what she fears. Who was traded to the Dodgers? I don't know. I just wear the Dodger hat because I'm fed up with the Braves, and it's just do something, Braves, then I'll put your hat back on. What's up, Sonia? What's up, Groby? Yeah, they don't ever admit anything. It is wild, though. I wonder. I mean, that woman, for all we know, could be on a boat to Cuba right now. a raft. Just trying to get somewhere safe. I mean, because you know she ain't going to Canada now that Trudeau has stepped down. That's no longer a safe haven. All right. Now let's talk about this. One of these stories. I'm not going to talk about both these stories right now, but the January 1st, the explosive stories that started off the new year. I'm going to try not to just go into everything you've probably already heard about it, but just give just some. It's just so ridiculous. It really, really is. Even the logic of it is just, when you really step back and think about it, it's comical, really. The guy blew his head off because it was the only way he knew to warn us about the UAP drones that he couldn't prove to us because he had no evidence to prove it. I have no evidence, so in lieu of evidence, I will drive to Trump Hotel in Vegas and blow my brains out. That way you know it is true. I mean, that's the logic of this story that we have been told. I just blew my wad right there. But the story I'm talking about, in case you haven't heard it, I'm sure you have, but real quick, the Las Vegas cyber truck explosion suicide story, the one where a Trump-supporting Green Beret named Matthew Livelsberger rented a cyber truck off of the Toro app, drove it to the Trump Hotel in Vegas on New Year's Day, parked it in front of said hotel, and then blew it up while inside of it, while at the same time shooting himself in the head, killing himself, also still inside of it. Typical suicide story. And nobody else got hurt, okay? In fact, he proved just how well a Tesla can contain an explosion inside of it. Maybe this was a native ad. Maybe Elon Musk put him up to it. The part I want to focus on is this. This is so ridiculous. This alleged email manifesto that the dude allegedly sent, I'll probably be saying that word a lot, to a retired Army intel guy named Sam Shoemate. Okay, we have Sam Shoemate, and we have Matthew Livelsberger. Berger and Shoemate. Just a couple of dudes, Berger and Shoemate. I know tons of Berger and Shoemates. Sends it to this retired intel guy named Sam Shoemate on New Year's Eve, the day before Livelsberger killed himself. An email that the intel guy then read on some dude's podcast I'd never heard of until a couple days ago, 2 days after the suicide. Got the email before the suicide, read it officially 2 days after the suicide. Oh, D's laughs. That's very kind, man. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. That tip. So, it seems a little bit sensational or fantastical to me, but hold on a second. Make sure I'm getting that right. I want to make sure I'm getting the details of this clearly true story we're being told correct. Okay, yeah, he read it on that podcast, and then he posted it on X, and the whole story seems a little crazy. The email thing, I find it a little bit hard to believe for a couple of reasons. I mean, there's many reasons, but two easy reasons is because the guy that it was emailed to has a past history of faking emails. On top of that, he is a former Army intel guy, which when I hear that, I hear someone whose job is psychological warfare operator, basically, especially when they're operating in, civilian capacity. Those two things right there, I'm like, don't buy it. Nevertheless, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who actually wrote it. And I can actually see a plausible scenario where the guy might have written it. I could also see one where he was forced to write it or somebody else wrote it for him, whatever. But enough people and the general public have accepted that he wrote it because the mainstream news is talking about it as though he did, because the FBI, when asked, said that even though they can't prove it yet, that they have evidence to make them believe that he did, in fact, write it. So they're basically operating on the assumption, yeah, he wrote it. News media saying he wrote it. Most people are accepting it, and they're accepting that what he wrote is an explanation for what he did. And that's the purpose of the PSYOP right there, which ultimately, when you combine that with the 18 other PSYOPs that's been going on since 2017 and well beyond, but this is just what I'm, mentally going back to, connecting the first soft opera, opening of the UFO PSYOP in 2017, which amped up in 2020, then again in 2021, 2022, really fired up in 2023. Then it switched over to drones. It's been China for a long time, but all of these threads have slowly started intertangling together to attempt to form one giant fear that consumes everybody in America of China. China is coming to kill you, and their technology is better than ours, and they're already here. Give us money and support our efforts to ramp up weapons manufacturing to levels you've never seen before. And oh yeah, beg us, blow us so hard until we tell you we will let you go to war with China. That's the whole idea. I don't know that it's going to work, but that's what all this stuff is like ultimately painting down the road to. I will tell you the next time I am doing shows, next time I'm doing stand-up shows, I will post it. So, back to the email, which the reason I really want to go through this email, just some of it, is because it answers that question that we've all been asking lately. It's been pressing on our minds. What's up with the Jersey drones? I mean, it's such a fun question, right? This email from this guy who blew his brains out before letting us read it, allegedly, answers that question. So it does that, but I also want to point out after that, the most important part of the email that everybody who talks about this story seems to just pretend doesn't exist, so which is kind of weird. Starting with the drone question that Livelsberger's email answers, he says in the email to the psychological warfare operator, you go into one word, you start to cut to another, and you just end up saying something that makes you sound downright retarded, to be honest with you. He says, what we've been seeing with all the drones is the operational use of gravitic propulsion system-powered aircrafts, most recently by China, but throughout history, also by the U.S., and then he says only China and the U.S. have this capability, which that's an interesting thing to say. We've both been using it throughout history, but we are the only ones who have it. He then says that China is responsible for what we're seeing, referring to the drones, and that they're doing it as a show of force, kind of like that balloon they flew over America last year. It's just a weird combination of things. Just like that balloon was a show of force. The message then gets more dire, saying that the so what is basically the speed and stealth of these unmanned ACs. They are the most dangerous threat to national security that has ever existed. And he later adds that China is poised to attack anywhere on the East Coast. You need to elevate this to the media so we can avoid a world war, because this is a mutually assured destruction situation. That's why he did it. Look, here, we're all going to be annihilated from the planet. The United States and China both. Maybe the world. We have to stop it. These are your instructions. You elevate this to the media while I drive to the Trump Hotel in Vegas and blow my brains out. That's the plan. Got it? I mean, that is what the logic of this plan is. To get people to take seriously these threats I'm warning them of, the only thing I can do is rent a Tesla Cybertruck, put a gun in my mouth, and blow the back of my head off. Because then people know you mean business. Because brains splattered all over the inside of a Cybertruck equals you're telling the truth, not you're crazy. Again, we're assuming that any of this we're taking it at face value. through this analysis of it here. The thing he's doing the wake-up call for is, which I thought this to be interesting, is he's basically describing the UAP things, just he's attributing it to China, which I think that's ultimately what it was always going to be. But there's a lot of other people talking about those things too, who have all said, you know what, I can try and get the word out about this. I can either blow my brains out, or maybe I can testify to Congress without evidence. Or maybe make ridiculous claims followed by an anonymous source inside the Pentagon told me. I'm going to stick with that before renting the Cybertruck and painting the inside of it red. Isn't that an unexpected way to get the answer to that drone question? I mean, really, like we were all having some fun just speculating about the drone question, and then all of a sudden we get it answered from an email written by a guy who'd only let us know the answer that he put in the email after swallowing a bullet. I mean, I would have stopped asking if I knew those were the requirements. I didn't sign up for these conditions to get this question answered. I know the answer to the drone question. What is it? I have to kill myself? No. No, I don't need to know that bad. Surely there's another way. Which this reveals as the letter continues, which I kind of alluded to a moment ago. This is the most important part of the letter to me. He says after, expressing his fears that we're all going to die from this anti-gravity crafts that he's so certain that we have, he's willing to die for it. He says, this is obviously a very big deal. Obviously. You don't rent a Cybertruck unless it's a big occasion. But I don't have anything to verify this information with. Talking about gravitic propulsion systems without evidence just makes me another UFO talking head. He's worried about sounding crazy. I don't want to sound like a crazy person. No, I'm not doing that. I'll blow my brains out before sounding like David Grush. I mean, that thought had to go through his head. He had no evidence to prove any of this. And he realized that if he just started telling us that all this stuff that we've been told doesn't exist yet, it's only theoretical, and that it's a threat, while in the same breath telling us that he's never seen one himself, nor has he ever seen any evidence to prove that it exists himself, he hasn't seen it firsthand. He knows that he would sound exactly like David Grush and all those other weirdos who testified to Congress who also had no evidence. We're third and fourth hand sources who insisted that we just believe them, who none of us took seriously. He killed himself because David Grush was so ridiculous. The congressional hearings on Congress, that joke that happened, seemed to be the reason that this guy blew his brains out. He saw how stupid they looked and how unseriously everybody took them. He's like, I got to come up with something else. I don't have any evidence. What's the next best thing? Poof. There's a middle ground there. I mean, that's not the solution, people. If you don't have evidence to prove something, one, maybe it's not true. Ask yourself why you believe it. Two, just look for evidence a little bit longer before you find the gun, okay? Again, assuming any of this is true. So, the reason that this is plausible to me, accepting these facts is true. Don't get me wrong. It's also there's many other possibilities that are plausible. I've gotten crazy messages from people. Some of you probably have too, where they expressed very, very, I don't want to say wild beliefs because I believe wild things for fun sometimes, but like they've expressed certainty about UFO alien beliefs Like they thought they could call one to my house on command and stuff, and just, which I'm all for it. I'm like, if you can do it, I'm down. Let's make contact. But like, it was one of those things where you would ask some questions of it, and I would never try to belittle anybody who believes that, because I think we don't know anything about the universe, but I do ask questions to kind of find out the basis of the belief. And there's just times where some people, you ask a question and the reasoning is not always there. I've gotten messages not too far, and I mean, not somebody who's doing anything crazy like this, but they kind of sound like the way this guy's talking. And this guy could very well have been convinced. He was in the military. He was deployed. He did spend time at MK Ultra University, Fort Bragg, which, whatever it's called now, maybe we should close, whatever it is now. So he was probably susceptible to manipulation, probably surrounded by many, many handlers. They identify people they can, direct into doing things like this. It's plausible that this guy was manipulated into believing what he said in that message, if he said that, and that he thought it was his patriotic duty. That's what he had been convinced of, to save this country from total annihilation by sacrificing his life to call people's attention to it, to something that he believes with all of his heart, but he has never seen himself firsthand. That's exactly why people go fight and die in wars, because they're convinced that there is a threat to their country, their family, their homeland, that it is their patriotic duty to go fight, to protect their homeland, to go fight against this thing that they've never actually seen. They've only been convinced exists, and that they must go sacrifice their lives to protect their home from that. It's the same thing, just applied in a different direction. Throw in a Cybertruck. The guy has been manipulated in that way before. Same philosophy. And honestly, first person I'm looking at, I'm questioning, is the guy who read the email. Because that guy would like to have people believe that this dude was probably emailing everybody. I typed his email address in. He didn't send me anything. But he was like, no, Rogan, everybody probably got emails from this guy because he's trying to get on Fox News, because he's like, get me on Fox on late notice on New Year's Eve, or pow, blow my head off. It's the only other option if you can't get me on. Everybody probably missed an email. I'm just the one who saw it, which is bullshit. Nobody sends the way he wrote that email, the way it was written in a tone that was talking to someone that they knew was going to read it on New Year's Eve, and that they knew a couple of days later was going to publicly share it after something had happened. There was no doubt that it was going to be discovered in the time frame, the window that it needed to be discovered to be part of this explosive story. Who sends an email to Joe Rogan or anyone on New Year's Eve with the expectation that it will be seen within a week, let alone a couple of days, which was the time window for it to be read and then for it to be received and then read afterwards? Nobody. Absolutely. You only send that message in the tone it was written if you know the person you're sending it to is going to be looking out for it. I think it's like 300 unread email addresses, unread emails is the average that most people have in their inbox at any time. I have like way more than that. I'm pulling up that average. But let's say that guy's got 200. He's got the lower end of it. Is this guy noticing this email from a stranger on New Year's Eve that must have had some sort of catchy subject line? What made him open it? Of all the emails you scan through, there's one from a stranger. You don't open it unless it's got a catchy subject line. I searched for what the subject line for that was. Now, I haven't watched that guy's video. Maybe he showed it in his video he posted, I think, yesterday. I haven't been able to find anywhere where there's a subject line that caught his attention and compelled him to, on a holiday, open an email. Somehow it stood out from the crowd. And then once he realized how long it was, say, you know what? It's New Year's Eve. I got plans. I'm going to sit down for 2 hours and go through this shit crazy email. that email was specifically designed for that guy, even if they do find that he sent it to other people. It was sent knowing nobody else would pick it up. That guy might have been his handler. For all we know, I'm not going to accuse somebody of anything. I don't know. But the guy is shady, and accepting that this guy actually might have believed some of these things, I feel sorry for him. He was very badly manipulated. He did go and fight for this country. And just like that old lady, he was lied to, he was manipulated, he was turned into a psychological warfare weapon to push a World War III agenda under the guise of thinking that he's saving the country from World War III by killing himself. Of course, he might still be alive somewhere. I don't know. What I think about Zuckerberg and how social media shouldn't be censored. Who's talking to Zuckerberg? Yeah, they are smoking the good shit. Was it the UCF guy talking to Zuckerberg, Sam? What's up, Michael? Yeah, the drones. So, yeah, I mean, the war thing is, with China that's been a psyop they've been trying to like prepare the public for. I mean, for a long time, but they really started hammering that one when COVID started in 2020. Started to shift the main big villain to China from Russia. Of course, Russia's going to be part of their team, and Iran's going to be part of their team. But it was always the U.S. versus China. I mean, that was part of the Great Reset. Is the United States, their power starts to fade back as China rises. And it wasn't always clear if it would be some sort of war, and it might not be. But to try and make people believe that China, or even if aliens or anything, have these propulsion anti-gravity crafts that our military can't protect us from, is a great way to justify shifting massive amounts of budget to creating it very quickly without regulation, super weapons. Yeah, and with the drones, and I know people listen to this show, I don't think it scares any of us really, because I think it's kind of funny and fun to talk about. And, that is until some dude comes in and ruins it by trying to get our attention by blowing his brains out. Then it's like, bummer, dude. But the people who believe those things, and a lot of people see them, the idea is to make people believe that China's not just a distant threat, that it's a real, tangible threat to their own personal well-being, to their family, to their homes, right up in the sky, and that our government is helpless to defend them from it. And you put somebody in a situation like that, and they might blow you until you let them go to war with China. Hopefully that's not something that'll happen. Hopefully they usually go to the extreme and they pull it back to the middle. And hopefully Trump won't fall into some of this stuff. But CSE, have you done that? So you had a contact after requesting. So Cobalt, let me see that. You say you had a contact after requesting a contact in a plus. You had a 20 plus person. What is a CSETI? What is that? Is that the search for extraterrestrial intelligence? Is that what that is? What was the contact you say that you guys had like? I mean, I would love to experience something like that. As long as it was, not proby. I don't want any proby going on. I just want to say, hey, look at me. This is what I look like. Here's some telepathy. We can talk through our, brains, and maybe some superpowers. Like, I would really like that kind of situation. I don't want the baseball bat getting pulled out to analyze me. Yeah, hit me up. I would love to know what that, message me later or something after the show and hit me up on Twitter, Freedom Act Radio, and let me know what your experience was like with that. I've always wanted to believe, and honestly, the past few years have turned me into, I've said it before, Mulder in season 6 of X-Files, where I'm jaded by the PSYOPs that exploit people's authentic search for things outside of us. You guys have lasers to point at the sky. So was it like a drone-like thing that flew over that you guys saw? What did it look like? That's very interesting. Skelly had it going on. Yeah, she did. Very skeptical indeed, that Skelly. Mulder was actually a lot more reasonable at times, I have to say that. He did always ask it. Scully was a little quick to dismiss the possibility that science couldn't explain it. Caldwell says points of lights moving, was that Oddfly? That's interesting. So is that an app, you said? I'll have to get back to you on the Zuckerberg question. I mean, you're talking about Trump and Zuckerberg? I don't like it at all, them getting together to talk about censorship. Either way, I don't like it. That's one thing I'm worried about, honestly, with Trump is like, while there still are plenty of people that, despise him, there's the appearance of a little bit more unity than people might have expected. Some of his biggest objectors or critics have kind of quieted in the mainstream anyway. Not all of them, and still the MSNBC and stuff. But even John Brennan. John Brennan, the most ridiculous former CIA guy ever, complimented Trump's transition team recently. I literally have never heard him say a good thing about Trump. And there's one thing that countries always try to create the appearance of before entering a war, and that's unity. And in creating that appearance of unity, anti-war voices are suppressed. And I hope that's not what's happening. I hope that Trump sticks to his promise of not getting us in any more new wars when he takes over as president, as opposed to being a Woodrow Wilson who in, 1916, won re-election for his second term on the campaign promise that he would keep us out of World War I, only to 5 months later, in 2017, take us in to World War I, a country that was formerly very, very, we wanted to stay neutral. It was a massive propaganda campaign organized by the British who infiltrated over here, had propaganda cells all over the country. They targeted the elite, the academics who thought they were too smart for it. And didn't take long for them to sway the public into thinking that the Kaiser was coming to get us. I hope there's no Woodrow Wilson in Trump. He doesn't seem like that kind of guy to me, but I really don't know, honestly. So I guess we'll see what happens. It'll be a telling year, I think. Michael says, I bet he won't get out of NATO. Yeah. A lot of these things are kind of a I'll believe it when I see it type thing. Sam Hyde torched Elon. Yeah, I saw that Sam Hyde thing. I thought that part about him, about the Asian spies, was very funny. He's a unique guy. Isn't he like a wrestler also? Anti-war all the way, or the Obama's peace propaganda. Yeah, so Edward Bernays, along with the books he wrote, he has all these papers he submitted, like these documents, these plans, submitted to I can't remember what the world governing bodies were called at that time. I think it might have been before NATO. But all of them had titles like Making the World Safe for Peace Plan. All of it has that. Then you open it up and it's just all a blueprint to start a war. for the sake of peace and democracy. He did creator boxing. Oh, okay. He's a pretty big guy, too, isn't he? Creator boxing. This could be a wide range of people, couldn't it? You know, Steve, I'm about to come off the disabled list. Talking about sinking threes. I've been going to the gym, shooting around again as my elbow's getting stretched back out. I'm excited to get back out there. PSYOP Inception, said Forest Mommy. Atlanta Thrashers NHL jersey. Yeah, I don't know if they sell those around here anymore. Where did they send the Thrashers anyway? We had that team for I feel like it was like a blink. All right, guys. I'm going to be back in a few hours with Ian. Thanks for hanging out with me and let me test my tech and listen to me rant a little bit. Thanks for the comments. Thank you, D's Laughs. It's a very kind comment and tip you left me. I really appreciate that. All right, we will talk to you guys soon. Y'all have a fantastic rest of your evening. See you in a few hours.